Good evening, and welcome to the program, The Omkar. Today, I want to show you some interesting things that I've been looking up recently. And today's topic is, what is Hinduism? Now, let's dive right into it. Now, in deciding where to start, I was thinking about starting with what we have locally here in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is what they call Sanatanist Hinduism. So let's ask Google the question: what is Sanatanist or Sanatan Dharma? Well, let's say it says Sanatanist Hindu. So what is a Sanatanist Hindu? So Sanatanist Hindu refers to someone who follows Sanatan Dharma, which is a traditional and often interchangeable term for Hinduism. So basically, what we are getting here as the answer is that Sanatan Dharma and Hinduism is interchangeable. Sanatan Dharma emphasizes timeless, universal principles of righteousness and duty as revealed in the Hindu scriptures like the Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and we'll go to include Ramayana. As we know, primarily in Trinidad, we hear a lot of Ramayana. It is viewed as an eternal path with origins predating recorded history. So Sanatan Dharma, the term rooted in Sanskrit, translates to eternal Dharma. So Sanatan is eternal, Dharma is way, or timeless duty. And it signifies a way of life based on universal, unchanging principles. And remember in my previous series, Diksha, that was one of the things I said, or I reiterated ever so often, that Sanatan Dharmic principle is what you would consider eternal and unchanging. So if you are practicing something that is, let's say, that, you know how they say some practices or some traditions were applicable back then, but it no longer apply now, you can say that those teachings or those practices or those traditions are not Sanatan Dharma. But the idea is not to criticize any tradition, but rather to say, how do you sift through what is Sanatan Dharma or eternal, or the eternal way, or the eternal path, compared to something that is merely a cultural custom. So in terms of religion versus custom or versus tradition. So Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma is often used synonymously with Hinduism, the third largest religion in the world. The key text, Sanatan Dharma, encompasses a vast body of sacred texts, including Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Puranas. Right? It is not a sect. Core principles: Dharma, righteousness, karma, reincarnation, moksha, atma, and Brahman. There are two principles too, that it is said that the four goals of life are Dharma, moksha, kama, which is pleasure, and artha, which is wealth. The four goals of life. So it is not a sect. While there are different denominations within Hinduism, like Vaishnavism, Shaivism, etc. So, Shakti is one of the denominations. Sanatan Dharma itself is not a sect, but rather an overreaching tradition. It's a way of life that can be adopted by anyone, regardless of caste, creed, or sect. Now, I covered previously that there are various sects in Hinduism, And basically what this is saying is that Hinduism, as a definition, is a way of life. And so Sanatan Dharma, or the eternal way or righteous way, is the unchanging. So it applies to all sects. That is a bit of a misleading, let's say, direction that the AI has taken there. There are Hindu sects that do not have the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the Puranas as major sects. Some actually denounce Vedas, Upanishads, and Puranas, but they are still considered Hindu in terms of their let's say their background in philosophy and these kind of things. But there are some sects that they are not considered Hindu because they do not follow the scriptures. So for example, Buddhism, which began in India, so Buddhism began in India at around 500 BC. So Buddhism was founded in the northeastern region of India, what is now Nepal. I believe Ayodhya is in Nepal as well. I'm not sure. So Ayodhya is not in Nepal. Hold on here. Let's see the maps. Ayodhya Puri. Ayodhya Dyar. What is Ayodhya Puri? Ayodhya Dham. Ayodhya. Let's see. Oh. No, Ayodhya is not located in it is an ancient city in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh and is the birthplace of the Hindu deity Rama. While the place called Ayodhya Puri in Nepal is associated with the Ramayana and claimed as the birthplace of Rama, it is distinct from the main Ayodhya in India. Ayodhya Puri in Nepal is a village in Nepal that is also associated with the Ramayana, has been claimed as Ram's birthplace. Disputed claims some Nepali political figures, including the former Prime Minister, have claimed that the real Ayodhya is in Nepal. This is something that sounds political, so we wouldn't go into this because previously, just from reading, and this is the thing with the internet, so as we on it, I'll point it out. So previously, I read back in the days, whenever, that Ayodhya was in Nepal. Now they are saying Ayodhya is not in Nepal because obviously you can't have, let's say with the Ram Mandir reopening and all these things that they're claiming that now Ayodhya is in India. So that's a kind of by the way. I don't know, I wasn't there. So, real Ayodhya in Nepal, not India, is Nepalese Prime Minister. So apparently it's a debate. I don't know, I wasn't there now, and I wasn't there historically, so whatever. Anyway, back to the main point. So Buddhism, which is an offshoot of Hinduism, because Buddha would have learned meditation and yoga and the systems of mantra from the people who were there at the time, which would have been Hindu. And then from his self-realization through the yogic practices, he would have denounced the Vedas as being an authoritative in the Buddhist teaching, in what he taught people. And so that's how Buddhism came about, primarily, because he was not advocating for the Vedas, let's say. So that's the distinguishing factor there that distinguishes Buddhism from Hindu, although they both have the same practices and same background. In terms of yoga, not rites and rituals and these kind of things. Another example is Sikhism. So the Sikhs. So again, it's similar in terms of Buddhism, in terms of what we are saying, that it originated at a certain point in time. Here it says 15th century CE, so 1500 AD. And so it would have been the teachings of Guru Nanak, I believe his name is. And yeah, so Guru Nanak. And he would have his upbringing in the Hindu system and Hindu philosophy, but gone on to have his own opinions and denounce certain scriptures and denounce certain teachings, and that's why it would be considered a separate religion from Hinduism and not really be based on what we would say is mainstream Hinduism. So that's why we are saying the separation is just to make distinctions in the boundaries here of what we are saying is Hinduism as opposed to Buddhism and Sikhism, and why they are different within India. And then we'll look at sects in Hindu sects that don't hold the Vedas as authoritative. So several Hindu sects do not consider the Vedas to be ultimate authority. These are often referred to as heterodox or Nashtika schools and include Buddhism, Jainism, and the Charvaka schools. So now that goes also, and this is one of the major things, is that, for example, in a lot of the yogic traditions do not hold any scripture as major tradition. So, for example, you have Kriya Yoga. So the Kriya Yoga system. So it's an ancient meditation technique focused on breath control, mantra, and mudra to accelerate spiritual growth to achieve a deep state of tranquility and communion with the divine. So we have Kriya Yoga International, Kriya Yoga School. Right. So this is just an example. It's not to say that they are the only one. Not hold Vedas. So I'm just Googling this on the fly. So Kriya Yoga does not reject the Vedas, but rather incorporates and builds upon the foundational principles found within them, particularly those related to Raja Yoga and Vedanta. While Kriya Yoga is a distinct practice on its own techniques and lineage, it acknowledges and integrates wisdom from ancient Indian scriptures. That would make sense. But this is the point I'm making here, is that in terms of primary discipline, it's a yogic tradition. Now, one thing I want to mention from there, so we are going from what is Sanatan Hindu, is the tradition that we primarily follow in Trinidad, which is the Smarta tradition. And the main influence was Adi Shankaracharya. So, Smarta tradition is a Hindu movement emphasizing the worship of 5 deities: Vishnu, Shiva, Shakti, Surya, and Ganesh. It is known for its non-sectarian approach, viewing all these deities as different manifestations of the one ultimate reality, Brahman, and for its philosophical basis in Advaita Vedanta. Smarta followers typically adhere to the principle of Varna, Ashrama, Dharma, which involves following social and religious duties based on one's caste and stage of life. So, what we follow in Trinidad, especially, is based on the teachings of Adi Shankaracharya, which is defined, or some of the parameters as the worship of the 5 major deities. Now, it is not the only form of Smartism, which is, what I'll say is that, for example, the Shakti worshippers, they will also worship a group of deities, not one primary deity. So Shakti worshippers so Parvati, Durga, Kali, Lakshmi, and Saraswati. So that's 5. And some will Kal Bhairav as well. But the idea, so the basic idea behind Smartism really is there's a group of deities really, which represent 5 different elements, not physical elements, but 5 different. So Vishnu is the sustainer, Shiva is the destroyer, Shakti is universal energy, Surya is the sun, and Ganesh is removal of obstacles. So they are seen as an all-encompassing team, let's say. Now, going back to the Smarta tradition and the teachings of Adi Shankaracharya. So this is the philosophical aspect. So Advaita Vedanta. What is... Now I'm going through all this just as a way of laying some groundwork for future episodes, which is to understand where we are standing right now. So for a lot of the Hindus watching, it is not to say that we are fixed in any one way of thinking, but sometimes there's some confusion. So in terms of the intermingling of philosophies or the intermingling of the different sectors of Hinduism, so for example, we are the Smarta tradition. Most Hindus are Smarta tradition in Trinidad. But then, for example, the Hare Krishnas. This is just all first time I'm Googling this as well, so I'm just wondering. So are the Hare Krishnas Smarta or follow the Smartic tradition? No, the Hare Krishna movement, formerly known as the Gaudiya Vaishnavism, is not part of the Smarta tradition in Hinduism. And that's simply because they do not worship that, they do not follow that 5 deity system. Right? They worship Krishna. That is the chief deity. Do Vaishnavas. So that's And the Hare Krishna, so do Vaishnavas, Navas, fall under Smarta tradition. No, Vaishnavas, which are Vishnu worshippers, do not typically fall under the Smarta tradition. So we know of the Hare Krishna. Vaishnavas, I don't think people might know too much, let's say, exclusive Vishnu worshippers. But for example, so the Shiva devotees, but one sect is the Agori. So Agori. So the Agori yogis Smarta Hindus. Right? So no, Agori yogis are not Smarta Hindus. And then you have the Naga sadhus, which are the wandering naked sannyasins. They wander in India naked and they are renunciates. So our Naga sadhus of the Smarta tradition. Right? So no, they are not. Naga sadhus primarily belong to the Shiva tradition, so they are Shaivas. Along with Agoris, they have different practices, but they are considered Shiva devotees. Probably Hare Krishna fall under the Vaishnava. Oh yeah, Vaishnavism. And then you have, for example, the Radha Govind Society. So Adi Radha Govind Smarta Hindus. Arrival of society as Smarta Hindu. The term Smarta refers to a specific Hindu tradition and emphasizes the worship of Brahma through various deities. So it is not accurate to call the Radha Govind Society Smarta Hindus. So this is just these are the ones that I can name off the top of my head, right? So for example, the Arya Samaj, the Smarta Hindus. No, the Arya Samaj adherents are not typically considered Smarta Hindus. They do not follow the Smartic tradition. So now I'm naming these because that's what a lot of people know in Trinidad, right? So for example, probably is Chinmaya Mission. Smarta. Right? So Chinmaya Mission is a Hindu organization focusing on disseminating Advaita Vedanta philosophy, which is a key school of thought in Hinduism. While not explicitly Smarta, it aligns and promotes its teaching with Advaita Vedanta, as expounded by Adi Shankaracharya. So they are not exactly aligned because the key difference here is that the Smarta tradition practice is the worship of the 5 deities. So I'm just naming the major ones in Trinidad just to make a point that I'm laying the groundwork for future episodes here, which is that we have a lot of various sects of Hinduism in Trinidad, which is a very good thing, I think. But sometimes people get confused because you hear different philosophies, and in hearing those different philosophies, there's confusion in what Hinduism is and what we are, and just to make a point, is not to get political or anything, but So, for example, there's one organization that does not allow you, as the Hare Krishna movement or the Sai movement, to come into their temples. And sometimes people look at this and they say, well, that's wrong. But the thing is, they have the different denominations and they have their different practices, and that's purely up to them and how they run their organization. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that it's just like that in India. Where they have their different deities reside at different temples, and they practice things in this way. But in Trinidad, because we are so close-knit, it's the lines are blurred. Now, nobody is saying if you follow Smarta, which a lot of people do, that you cannot be something else. Like you cannot be part of the Radha Govind, or you cannot be part of the Hare Krishna movement. But then you have to realize the difference so that you don't get too confused when the two philosophies seem to be opposing. So, for example, when you hear in a satsang for the Hare Krishna devotees or the Radha Govind, and they speak as though Krishna is supreme, you don't have to pray to Ganesh for anything, you only have to pray to Krishna, and Krishna takes care of everything. That is their philosophy and teaching. And somebody who is deeply steeped in the Smarta tradition may find that a bit concerning, that they don't pray to Ganesh and they don't pray to Shiva. So every tradition has their core philosophy. And this is the simple point today as I round up the episode. There are a lot more sects in Hinduism. I haven't even gone into, for example, the Nath sect of Hinduism. Right, so it's a Shaivite sect. So they are primarily yogis, and these are the ones who live up in the Himalayas, and they live in the caves meditating for years. So these are one of the yogic, what we know as yogic sects. So they are Hindu Hatha Yoga ascetics. So these are the guys, they'll go on a mountaintop and they'll hold one posture for 2 weeks and these kind of things. So this brings me to the end of this episode. I try to keep it within the half an hour, and in other episodes we'll go through a lot more as we branch out. As I say, this is me going on the internet because a lot of people, especially young people, they use the internet these days to find material. They are curious, and I'm just trying to navigate and point out when there are discrepancies, or point out sometimes when there are solutions. Not solutions, but when there's another way of looking at things, because honestly, it's a bit confusing. Like I pointed out here, that it's a bit confusing when you come across so much information that sometimes it looks like it's just in a circle. So join me next week. I'll continue with this as well as go deeper, and we'll cover some more things. I want to go a bit into the life of Adi Shankaracharya and show sometime the situation that he was in, the atmosphere and the place. We spoke about Buddhism. We could look at these things. And I hope you found this interesting. Probably you learned something, and I hope to see you next time on my program. Like always, any comments or any feedback, any corrections, you can visit Sankhya TV Facebook and Sankhya TV YouTube and look for this video, and you can always leave a comment in the comment section of the video, and I'll try to answer them in future programs. Or for anyone who would like to join me, you can join me, and we can always discuss, and we could browse the internet together and discuss what we find. So like always, thank you for joining me on Sankhya TV, and I'll see you next time on the Omkar.